This is the eastern box turtle enclosure. I've gone ahead and extended it about 4 feet that way, give them some more space. I've got a couple new eastern box turtles that'll come out here once the night times are warm enough. Now the female, I've seen her come up a couple times that it's been warm enough, but she's not really up and out to stay. She's probably back down on the ground right now. Connected, of course, is the redfoot enclosure, and that's their nighttime box that's heated. You guys have seen that before in videos and vlogs. But on the other side of the pathway, we have the summer home of the pancake tortoises that we saw in my room. And the clovers are coming in nicely. There's a lot of grasses, some dandelions. So once those nights hit that 65 mark, they'll be golden out here with a buffet that'll last them probably most of the summer. With the sunshade on here, it's filtered so it doesn't burn the plants, it helps them grow. But they've got their rock setups and whatnot. Next to them, of course, is the outside ornate box turtle setup. Stoner has also been up and down a few times this year. Having lived in a very cold climate for most of his life, he's one of the earliest turtles that I see come up in the springtime. Last year, he was up by the end of February. So seeing him around this time, March, is pretty normal. This area over here, it used to be for the Indian star tortoises, but I put that wall down because Kiwi was restless. Kiwi, the cherry head, she was restless and decided to come over here, and this is where she's laid her last few nests, in the corner down here, which is also where I found the cherry head that you saw inside back in November. He was like right down next to this wall. She's laid a nest under this tree here, and she's laid a nest, of course, up close to the house, that very first one, the second year that we were down here, or the first full year they were outside. In here, I've got some clovers growing, along with a strawberry plant that somehow managed to live, and one of my beloved mulberry trees. This is actually a Pakistani mulberry. The fruits look mostly just like a mulberry, but instead of being like a little fatty thing, they're long, almost finger. They're the bananas of mulberries, is the best way to put it, and they are delicious. So when these grow, my turtles will get the leftovers that I don't eat. This is, of course, the Chaco tortoise enclosure. The male and female are in the shed right now. They've been able to come out some days when it's sunny enough and warm enough. Over here is where Harambe and his two girlfriends hang out. Still, Harambe and Sauron and Kiwi do not get along, so I can't put them together. I figured adding a couple females might mess up the dynamic a little bit and, you know, kind of a start from scratch. But those two still know who Harambe is, and they still hate him. They still ram him, bite him. They just don't like him. I don't know why. I put this one together last year from my Yucatan box turtles, and that from my Mexican box turtles. But given how this one over here gets obviously more sunlight and more heat throughout the course of the day, I'm probably going to switch them up and put the Mexicans over here when they're ready to go outside, and put the Yucatans over here. In the daytime, I've gotten them outside a few times, but it's just the Yucatans, they need a little bit higher temperatures than the Mexicans. So the Mexicans can deal with the sun that'll be over here once summer's up and the sun shifts a little bit. Right before the winter, this was barren. This was just nothing but mulch and some driftwood and sticks. Now you can see there's tons of weeds growing in here. I got the natural mallow. I've planted some clovers. This little guy is starting to get leaves over here. It's another trumpet bush. This is the exact same thing as one of these and one of these. Right now the leaves are falling off and some leaves are starting to come back on, but these provide so much shade. In fact, they've made a great shade corridor in here that I've been able to plant some grass that's growing down there for the tortoises to eat, and on this side as well. And there's also some clover sprouting up. But it's a great shade corridor that should last throughout the summertime, so even the hottest part of the day, there'll be a nice cool shaded area for the tortoises to move around in and be active in. And of course, this one I put together about a month before this one, and you can just see the amount of growth that this has had over the winter. I mean, there's basically a bed of clovers in here, and I just got to make sure I keep on watering it, usually about once a week, to keep these clovers alive, because the box turtles do eat them somewhat, but it's in that nice green area that when you think of box turtles, you think of humidity, moisture, foresty, shade, and this is providing kind of all of that. Now, one thing I skipped over is this huge open area back here past this shed. What I plan to do is put a waterfall in this corner here. leading to a shallow, maybe 2 feet at the most, pond, and then an overflow for it to recirculate and be filtered. And that's where the cohelins are going to live. So I'm going to put just like a little rock path to the doors up to here, and wherever that ends, which will be like right there to over here, that whole thing will be for the cohelins once they're large enough to come out here. Now, even though they have grown a lot, they're still another year or two from being able to come outside full time or even at all. So I've got time to get this particular water feature done and cage put together, but that's the goal right now. Of course, I might extend the Ornates because they should be having babies. I might extend them over a little bit, but that really won't take away much from all this open area in here for the cohelins. And the most natural looking enclosure over here, which I've done very little to maintain, because this is where the desert tortoise lives. So I don't do a whole lot in here because he likes this type of mallow, he likes the darker cheese mallow, he likes the grasses that grow in here. So this is as natural of a habitat, and a little bit maybe overgrown, as a desert tortoise is ever going to see in the last, say, 6,000 years since this area's been a desert. So yep, that's his little concrete home over there. Pretty much nuclear bomb proof, but he's done pretty good in it. Over here on this side of the path, this is where the leopard tortoises come out during the daytime when it's warm enough. You can see I've got a lot of grass growing in here. You can also see how well trimmed that grass is. The desert tortoises love that. When this mesquite tree is fully bloomed, there's a ton of shade down here. These mallows are providing a good amount of shade, and then the height of the walls, you can see they provide a decent amount of shade, so that once summer gets here and it's just intolerably hot, there's still pockets and areas where these guys can be active. So this area over here will eventually be dedicated to the pardalis leopard tortoises, but for right now, when it's warm enough, this is where the young aldabras are coming out. And again, there's this mallow in here for them to eat. There's tons of grass and other little weeds popping up. So for right now, this is aldabras. Eventually the aldabras are going to have the entire other half of the backyard where the galops are not. But for right now, this is more than adequate for the two little guys. And as I mentioned, over that way was back down the path there was where the Indian stars used to be. This is now the Indian stars enclosure. This whole big thing out here. So you can see there is basically unlimited food for these guys. As long as I water this usually on the weekend, sometimes in the middle of the week, if I see something struggling, then this is going to stay like this probably throughout the summer. At the very least, the tiny little trumpet bushes that I planted have grown up pretty well. This one's really bushy, and so is that one over there, and they're both great areas where I find the tortoises all the time. There's also these really tall desert dandelions that they both eat and hide in. I'm not a fan when they hide in there because they're kind of prickly, so usually the two males are the smaller ones, and they like to get themselves inside of that and hide down in there. But basically, as soon as they come out of their door, there's just green for them to eat and munch on. Now, what you might have noticed is a slightly larger tortoise in here. In the early evenings, once the stars go away, I allow Titan to come over here and get as much as he wants, because his area has some stuff in it, but it's nowhere near as lush as this. So we'll let him come over here for about an hour and graze and eat as much as he can in that hour before we put him away at night. Now this, of course, is new to the YouTube channel, but it's not new to my Instagram. This was originally supposed to be the stripy shed, meant for my Indian stars, Burmese stars, and radiateds. But there was so much space available vertically that I ended up putting kind of raised bench shelves, and I put some waterland tubs and some cement mixing tubs. And this is the cold storage for the tortoises that don't have their own boxes just yet. And for some of the babies that are kind of in that midway stage where they're okay to be outside-ish, but not completely outside. So we'll have a look right now and see who lives in here. The enclosures in here are part-time or mostly just nighttime enclosures. Right here, we have contrast and multi-scoot, still growing, still pretty, very light-colored leopards. And this is just where they live at nighttime. You know, they hang out in here, and then once the sun comes up and if they're ready to go outside, they come out here. Down here is the Burmese stars portion, their stall, and Mara is in for the night, it looks like. He's out to go out and find Mayo. Down here are where the Indian stars live. We got Orion right there, Rigel's there, Andromeda's over here, and somewhere wandering around in here is Nova. She's probably down in there. Yep, there she is. Up here is where the Chacos live. So there we got Taco the Chaco and Norm. Just Norm. You'll notice it's everything in here still has a kind of moist feeling to it, or it looks like it's moist. And that's just because I wet it down often so that it's warm and humid in here. Right now it's 84 degrees, and I would guess the humidity is probably above 50, which is kind of the best I can do in such a large open area here in Arizona. So Neutrino has gotten some pretty good size to her. This is her enclosure. She has an outside enclosure that is caged off so she doesn't get crushed by Titan on accident or predated by birds. So she's almost ready to be outside, almost big enough, but she's not quite there yet. And up and over here is Harambe and his two ladies. They've got a lot of nice wet molts to get in amongst. Oh wow, she's pretty quick. Mar has already come out. That's how big she is compared to my foot, which is rather large. Up here are the pardalis leopards, and this is their enclosure for now. You know, they will be going outside soon. They're, again, not quite big enough. You can see how big they are compared to this container. And then over here, of course, are the wild-caught sulcatas. Two of these we found in my yard. One was found 2 houses to the east. Another was found kind of towards our front yard. Our neighbors, 2 houses to the west and across the street, have found 2. Our neighbor directly behind to the side of us has found 1. And so given the radiation pattern, I would think that wherever these larger ones are and laying eggs, they're probably to the south of us. And this guy over here, this is Puddles. So you can see he's put on some pretty good size since we found him 2 years ago, back in September. And compare him to the ones that we found this year. But of all the tortoises that I own, I've never purchased or wanted to really purchase a sulcata, and they just show up literally at my doorstep. I really wish somebody would be this careless with radiated tortoises or maybe Indian star tortoises. Yeah, just if you own them and don't like them, please let them go by my house so that I can collect the babies when they have them. I don't know what to say. This is just, you know, when invasive species reproduce. So coming outside, this is the long paddock for the Burmese stars, and of course that's Titan's side over there. And you can see Titan does a lot of roaming and a lot of grazing, so it's nowhere near as green as the Burmese star side, Burmese star, Titan side, even though it gets just as much water, just as much sprinkler action. Titan's just more voracious than the Burmese stars are, I guess. I've got another little mulberry. This is another Pakistani mulberry growing down here that of course has bricks around it to keep it from being food, give it a chance to grow. A couple of prickly pear cactuses that of course are meant for food for these guys. These are the two of the first mulberry trees that I planted when I first got here, and this one's doing spectacular with this insanely thick trunk. This one's just as tall. Trunk's not as thick, but it's pretty nice. And this one got kind of wild, but I also noticed that the wildness of the leaves and sticks and branches made an amazing shade area down there. And you can see the grass is still growing beneath it, even from last year's leaves. So the leaves have all fallen off, and now they're starting to grow back in. Turn the sprinkler on this guy like twice a week just to give it that water it needs. And I'll have some mulberries in the somewhat near future. The tortoises will have some mulberries in the somewhat near future. And throughout the summer, they've got a great shaded area to hang out. And of course, this is the back 40, the back paddock where the Galapagos live. I've had to make some changes, of course, because as they get bigger, they need more space. Because they still can share space, I try to make it as equal as possible. So you see that it comes up and then kind of L's over, so that Beagle has all that area back there by that tree and a little bit of overflow from that tree, and then this tree and all this open area is for Fitz. Again, on my Instagram, you will have seen that I put up that second shade structure over there to give them more shade, because the summers are just insanely oppressively hot. I don't care what kind of tortoise you are, this is just not a good climate in the summertime, so we have to alter it somewhat for these guys. There'll also be a misting system. I just gotten them from Amazon that I'll be putting up there probably this weekend. So that'll be ready by the time it gets really hot in the middle of the day. And again, on Instagram, when I was putting together the stripy shed, I had to modify this over here a little bit. First, they needed bigger doors, so I had to rebuild the insides of the walls and put these doors in. And if you guys remember in my original videos when I moved down here, this used to be 4 stalls with a walkway in the middle. Well, these guys got so big, I mean, look, if that was just a single stall, it would be half his body. They just got weighed, and Fitz over here came in at 119 pounds. 10 more pounds and he weighs the same as my wife. Shh, don't tell anybody I said that. Here, this face, very comfortable, is Beagle. Looks like they've eaten all their Missouri treats they get. To try to encourage them to come in at nighttime, we'll use, just like in E.T., little lines of Missouri to get them to come in. And it's been pretty successful. He does not like being tapped on the butt end to come in. The last time we did that, he would not come out of this area for almost an entire month. Didn't eat for 2 weeks. He was just butthurt. And I've heard that about Galaps, that they're a very sensitive species, but I never experienced it until that. So to keep this warm, of course, it's insulated pretty well. I've got insulation on the clear, the plastic, the polycarbonate, so it allows light to come in and heat up, but it helps keep it in here. It's very efficient. It kind of gets really hot here in the day, but at nighttime I have this box heater right here and this spinny heater as a backup. I set this one to 80 degrees and I set this one to 83 degrees, and it usually keeps that temperature 83. This is on a timer, so it turns itself off just as the sun's coming up. And as the sun comes up, the sun comes in through the windows and heats this like the greenhouse effect, which was how I built this. I just didn't realize how efficient it would be. And this is wintertime down here at the ranch. Pretty soon, the nighttime temperatures will be at 65 or above, and everybody can stay outside all night long or go inside as they please. But until then, we still have to shuffle everybody in and out every morning and every night. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it for these guys. The amount of eggs they've laid this season has definitely proven out our efforts here. So thanks for sticking around. Sorry I haven't put out a video in a long time, but I appreciate every follower out there that still is here to see my videos. Look forward to the new ones very soon.